Hey, welcome to a new episode. Today we're still at Ebisu Circuit on our shooting trip here, and we're doing a bunch of really cool cars that Andy at Power Vehicles has recently picked up for some customers, collectors. And I thought it would only be right that we do a little feature on Power Vehicles themselves. And you know, everybody knows that Power Vehicles is based out of Ebisu Circuit, actually inside the circuit, pretty much like in front of Higashi. We're gonna go and check out the sort of work that they do. A lot of people, you know, assume that Power Vehicles is a Formula D team, but in reality, Power Vehicles is a legit car exporter slash reseller. They have an insane amount of stock, and they've kind of cornered the market where, you know, people kind of look for the really collectible JDM legends like Knobs S15 and the Garage TBK slash REM EMEA FD that we're going to be shooting today. So we're going to take a closer look at the shop. There's actually a couple of different workshops that we're going to look into, and then we're going to have a quick chat to Andy, and he can give us a bit of a rundown of what he kind of gets involved with here in Ebisu Circuit. So right in front of the shop is part of the stock. It's basically drift car heaven. A lot of people keep and store their cars here and come over for drift matsuris and other events, or just to practice and train themselves out of like bigger events. Today is the second day of the Grip Matsuri, so that's why you're probably hearing some squealing and engine noises behind me. All right, so this is the main workshop, and there's some really cool cars sitting around. We shot Knobs S15 yesterday, so we'll be seeing a full feature on that if you haven't seen it yet. This is next on the cards for today. This is a really special Auto Garage TBK slash REM EMEA build. It was a midnight club car back in the day, probably like 15, 16 years ago. It was actually featured in Option magazine. It's quite a famous car because it used to run with the Yoshida's 930 TBK car, the big Porsche turbo that did like 340 kilometers an hour on the Wangan and Yatabe. So historic car. Glad we get to immortalize it before it gets shipped off to its new owner. This is another Formula D Japan race car that Andy and his team are prepping for Fuji next round. Engine tuning is done by Tex Modify. Nice selection of rays and gram lights. The Team Power Vehicles are sponsored. S14 is another one we're gonna try and shoot today. The camera on this. Work Seeker wheels. And these JZX 100 that he pulled out for FDJ as the last round here in Ebisu. So that's the 3.5 stroker Brian Crow stroker kit with a GCG GTX. Serious setup. Still one of my favorite cars. Serious build. I did a shoot on this so long ago. Probably deserves another one. It's a nice crown here. It's been sitting around for a while, so they're doing some general maintenance to it. Definitely needs some refreshed goodies in the engine bay. This 180SX with the Vertex Ridge wide body conversion is literally like possibly the best 180 setup. I just love the way it just looks so smooth. And to top it off, T37s. Definitely featuring this today. It's got to be done. I'm a big fan of 180s, especially when they're done this cleanly. Before that, we're gonna have a chat with Andy, just get a rundown of the kind of business that Power Vehicles does. We'll take a look at the other workshops up the hill, see what the team's working on today. I know they're doing some welding work on Ben's Formula D Supra. All right, we're here with Andy from Power Vehicles. You know, I've known Andy for what?
20 years?
20 years plus. I don't even remember where we met, honestly.
Been here forever, like, yeah, GTR register or something.
And yeah, I mean, it was back when before you had the shop with Kazama.
That's right, just when we first moved to Japan, maybe 2005, and yeah, knew about you from the GTR register and the famous Dino and the forums it used to be back then, you know, and then we met in person, I think at
bulletin
Fuji.
boards and stuff.
Yeah, back in the day, you and your brother.
Can you give us like a quick rundown of how your business has kind of changed from those days up until today?
Well, our main business has always been car sales,
Yeah.
supplying dealers throughout the world for specialist Japanese cars. But yeah, it's kind of evolved over the years to higher end vehicles, more specialist demo cars. I mean, we've dealt with every big tuner in Japan just about. Sold many demo cars from, you know, HKS, Top Secret, you name it, Veilside, everybody, you know. So we're really lucky to have good introductions and good partners to get access to these cars, and then a great client base around the world of guys just waiting on the super special cars. So.
What do you make of how the whole JDM scene has kind of progressed and all these collectors, you know, buying cars that, you know, for us were kind of normal back in the day, and now
Definitely.
they're kind of being blown up out of proportion?
It's good and bad, because a lot of the vehicles pretty unaffordable for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I'm still glad to be involved in buying and selling these cars. Luckily, some of our clients, some of their customers are still in a position to afford these vehicles. Yeah. So we're really happy to be selling them, you know, because yeah, you walk into some of our other facilities, we've got 2 other storage facilities, and you walk in there and it's just like, it still blows my head every time you see there. Yeah, every time you walk in, just amazing, amazing cars.
Can you give us a quick rundown of what you have in the shop today? Just to give an idea to people what you kind of do, you know, week to week kind of thing.
Yeah, this is a good example. I mean, this is our workshop in Ebisu Circuit. This is where we actually prepare all the cars and build the cars. And we do everything. Like, this is my one of our 2 or 3 Motis, my personal race cars that we drive in Formula Drift Japan. So we have a Formula D Japan team. We've got 2 other Singapore drivers. We're joint with Team Kazama, making a huge team. Yeah. So we look after 3 of the cars here. So they're always in the workshop getting something done. You know what race cars are like. Yeah. So we run the race car side of things. We of course look after everyone that comes from overseas to drive in Ebisu itself. So we prepare and look after a massive fleet of drift cars. That are all on site, and then we also do our export, so the specialist export cars, things like this RX-7 and this Sylvia we're preparing. So yeah, a bit of everything. And
I mean, you probably remember back in the day, the Matsuri was absolutely wild.
Yeah.
Like, how has it changed? I haven't been to a Matsuri in like probably a decade.
Kind of just evolves with the car scene. I mean, 10 years ago there was loads of missiles and everyone was just being reckless, and now it's kind of evolved into the cars are a bit nicer these days and people are looking after them just due to the value. But it's always well supported. There's always a good mix of foreigners. All our customers come here, and of course all the local Japanese guys all mix it together. So it's not seeing the numbers that they used to, but I mean, back in the early 2000s, you know yourself, everything was massively supported. You know, every event was crammed. Look at the old footage of Ebisu Circuit at D1.
You were saying yesterday that the first, or one of the first Matsuris had what, like?
1997, the guys talk about, the staff, the older guys, and Kuma will tell you, I think 970 cars, so nearly 1,000 cars in sight, and it took 2 hours to get from one side of Ebisu to the other. And I've seen some old pictures of like before Minami had the 2nd level and stuff, and it was just absolutely crammed. That's absolutely crazy. Even.
I think we should probably go up 1 level and take a look at the other workshop, see what you guys are doing.
We've got our fabrication shop up the top. Obviously, you can't do the fab stuff on top of the maintenance, so we've got a separate room.
So it's a separate place that you do all that stuff.
Jono's locked up there and does all his magic with his welding.
Awesome, let's go take a look.
Cool.
Second level on the hill. This is where the other workshops are, where Andy and these guys are always working away fabricating. A few more cars stored out here. Let's have a look. I think the Benz Supra is being prepped for next week's Formula D in Fuji. There it is. Oh, welding.
Holy shit, that's on cover.
So this is where all the fabrication is handled. A lot of tools that I don't know about. Stuff to bend and weld and cut and sew. Tons of parts. And boy, do you guys have a lot of tires. Crazy. So these are all Linglong tires. All 19s as well. What is this?
It's a Chaser.
Oh, Chaser. Used to be a Chaser.
A Warrior. Seen a bit of action this one.
It looks like it's smiling at me.
Yeah.
Wow. You got uranium
Yeah.
fuel tank.
Always radium stuff. We've been using working in for years. Great stuff.
There's the intake. Right into the
All
radiator.
handmade, of course.
All right, so we're here with Andy from Fabrication. All right, cut.